Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. In a tremendous mood. That is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. In a tremendous mood. And, of course,
a team player.
Nick Wright.
I have to say I'm not a team player.
Who, you or me?
See. And someone who is just most, in my experience, most successful grown men are the hardest people to change or evolve. Like, being this way has gotten me where I am. A man who continues to evolve in all facets of life to the delight of everyone around.
Hour by hour.
Well,
you're a different guy now than you were an hour ago.
I wasn't going quite that far.
Oh, sorry.
But you know what I'm talking about. It's a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah. And if I don't get better, y'all can get rid of me next year at this time if the show is not doing better.
It will be. This is who we are. We're all in a good mood today. Hope you guys are as well.
We're motivated by magic.
It is Wednesday morning. We got a lot to talk about. We will start with NBA free agency because it's free, so why not? The Lakers seem to have center stage as we get set for that July 11th free agent period. Big names like LeBron and Paul George, even Kawhi Leonard, have all been rumored to want to land out in Los Angeles, either signing there or via trade. Team President Magic Johnson met the media yesterday and said it's not all about this offseason.
If we're banking on one summer for the Lakers, we're in trouble, right? We're in trouble because you have to give us time. This class, like I told you before I took the job and when I took the job, it's going to be a 2-summer thing for the Lakers. This summer and next summer. And that's it. And then if I can't deliver, I'm going to step down myself. She won't have to fire me. I'll step away from it, because then I can't do this job. No pressure on me. I mean, I'm gonna do my job. I've always done that. Look, I've been playing in, you know how many finals I've been in? So you think I'm worried about this? I played against Larry Bird in the finals. I mean, come on, man. I've been in 9 finals. I've been in college NCAA championship, I'm Magic Johnson. I'm still the same dude.
Oh, I love that so much.
It was a really fruitful little presser he had with that one. CeCe, what do Magic Johnson's comments tell you about the future of the Los Angeles Lakers?
I like Magic. I like where he's at. I like where his thinking's at. But if I'm a reporter in the room like you, Jenna, you know what I asked him? But you're not playing, though. This is about organizing a team. This is something you've never done. This is not high school. This is not college, where you're the best player in college basketball. It's not where you were outstanding rookie, but you also had Kareem and some other great players around you. So as a reporter, I've been like, yeah, Magic, but there is still question about how good you're going to be at this. Now, I like that his time frame. I like in Magic that he surrounded himself with a very, very competent team. And I believe Magic is also, he's looked out over the horizon and realizes LeBron can stay in Cleveland another year. And then he could potentially also come to Los Angeles. LeBron, this is not the most important year in his family's life because next year will be when the son decides to go to high school compared to 8th grade. So I like Magic. He's going to be more successful when you can set up a realistic plan. And he can't control Paul George. Paul George decides to stay in OKC. That's not Magic, but Magic hadn't set himself up for failure with his fan base and there with the Lakers organization saying, you know something, it's 2018 or bust because there's going to be potential free agents in next year's class that can change an organization also next.
Listen, what I took from the first comments, the comments where he's not at the podium, where he's standing there, where he says, Magic Johnson says, basically, if we don't get a whale this year or next, I'll quit. I'll resign. I will step down. Magic Johnson is not in the failure business. Aside from his talk show and his coaching career, he's been a wild success at everything he's ever done. The talk show wasn't great.
It was a doozy.
And Magic wasn't a great coach. But the businesses, obviously everything with basketball, he has been with the Dodgers. Everything he's touched has been successful. One of the most successful athletes turned businessmen ever.
And we can say in his first year, with Pelinka, him as a general manager, it's been about a year since they were named. They were successful.
Absolutely right. I would totally agree. From drafting Kyle Kuzma, which I think was probably more Pelinka than Magic, to handling the Lonzo Ball, Luke Walton, LeVar Ball situation as best as you could, and keeping the Lakers at the forefront of the NBA discussion. But so what I took from his comments were very simple. Magic knows he's got somebody. Now, I have a feeling I know who that person is. I think Magic knows that next offseason, Kawhi Leonard's going to be a Los Angeles Laker. Now, maybe they get him this offseason. Maybe it comes earlier than that. But I do not think Magic says, I'll quit in 2 years if I don't get a guy, if he does not fully believe he has a guy already. Now, maybe I'm wrong about the guy. Maybe he thinks we've got LeBron locked up. Maybe he thinks they've got Paul George locked up. I don't believe, and I've been led to believe, at least regarding LeBron, that decision has yet to be made. But I don't think he says that if he is not fully confident one of these three guys that we keep talking about, LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George, is going to be a Laker. And I think Kawhi's the guy he's most confident in.
You said it. He put together a realistic plan. There's a lot of pressure in Los Angeles, much like there was in New York when the Knicks were at the top of their game. What are you going to do? How do you get better? How soon? What's the timetable? Well, Magic finally had to answer, hey, guess what, guys? It may not happen this year. So I think you're right. He has some idea, whether it's a Kawhi or a LeBron who doesn't have to make his big life family decision this year, or a Paul George, whoever it is. Next year is actually the big key. Give himself a 2-year grace period, because in Los Angeles, you know those reporters there, all they want to know is how soon, when, and what is it going to look like.
Well, last year, even when he took the job, he said it was going to be a 3-year. Now, he knew that first class, who he drafted. They knew they had that high pick. They ended up getting Lonzo Ball, what people are very, very pleased with. I'm pleased with Magic selecting him. You talked about Kyle Kuzma, and there wasn't the free agent heist from last year. So Magic knew LeBron potentially could be free, knew Paul George and his desire, but also Magic knows the basketball community. There's going to be a star in the NBA. Now, I'm not like Nick, where Nick believes that Magic has a guy already. The basketball climate right now in the NBA says one of these stars is going to play for the Lakers. Now, the Lakers have always had that type of pool, that type of on free agency, and he believes that's going to happen in the next couple years based on privately what people have expressed to him. I don't believe there's one guy right now, but I believe there's been enough conversations surrounding someone coming to Los Angeles that he would make that type of statement. And also, I got to back up Magic as far as him saying there's not the type of pressure on him that he's faced throughout his life.
It's a different type of pressure, but it's not as it is not nearly as he was probably never overwhelmed, but it's not sitting purely on his shoulders the way it was when you're the best player on a team in the NBA Finals going against Larry Bird.
And he didn't have the reputation that he has now. Like, regardless of what he does with the Lakers, he still will always be one of the top NBA players, and he'll always be successful as a business person. So I believe he will be successful with the Lakers compared to the other things, coaching and the show, that weren't successful, because he's gone about it the right way.
So, Nick, let me ask you this. Would one big free agent acquisition be enough to consider Magic a success in this role?
This is why they hired him. This was what I got so frustrated with my friends in the analytics and NBA Twitter community when they hire Magic Johnson, and the response is, oh, how well does he know the CBA? How's he going to do in trades against Daryl Morey and Danny Ainge and R.C. Buford? And I wanted to pull my hair out, whatever hair I got, to say, and that ain't why you hire Magic Johnson.
No.
You hire Magic Johnson, you know why? Because he's Magic bleeping Johnson. Because you hire Magic Johnson because he, in addition to being in Los Angeles, and in addition to being the Lakers, he gives you that added piece to get LeBron or Paul George.
This is
or
why.
Kawhi.
This is the time.
This is why you hire Magic Johnson. Because whether it's the LeBron part, which is, yeah, the Lakers and basketball, but also, what better former NBA player to maybe learn some off-the-court business stuff from than Magic? Whether it's a guy that, in Paul George, I grew up watching Magic Johnson. Whomever it is, he has an extra cachet that no analytics GM is going to have. That's what Pelinka's there for.
And also, Magic, because of what the late Dr. Buss did for Magic, as far as the education, as far as the way he opened up his home and business and relationships in Los Angeles to Magic when he came from Michigan, Magic owes this to the Buss family. So you can believe that he's talking when Jenny Buss, when he said, hey, Jenny don't have to worry about that because I owe it to her and the dad and the legacy of that family. And that family, their legacy has been If they don't have a star, go out and get a star. And that's why you hire Magic Johnson.
And that family, the Lakers are the family business.
Yes.
It is not, we have this it's the big empire and we bought a basketball team. The Lakers are the family business for the bus.
And it's not just that Magic Johnson has the relationships. He's good at these relationships.
Oh, man.
He's as good as it gets as bringing people in.
Absolutely.
Much like Chris Carter. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Chris
Whoa.
Carter and Nick Wright.
There you
Right,
go.
Nick and Chris,
Thank
both
you.
together,
Appreciate that.
same time as one. They work as one. Coming up, which All-Pro thinks they can dominate the NFL for another decade. Plus, guess who's stopping by? Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP, will be here live in studio. Next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new platinum margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
Coming up on First Things First, Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles stops by, chats with us here on the desk, live at 7:30. Don't go anywhere. Should never go anywhere, but then especially don't go anywhere. Nick Foles right here at 7:30. We're going to get to the NFL in a second, but first, check out some soccer highlights. Andre Carrillo.
That's so good. Jenna was practicing the player name pronunciations all break. Little did she know the sport pronunciation is going to get her.
No, Carrillo with the hunker in the back of the net. That's the way she called it.
Anyway, Peru defeats Australia 2-0.
Some of the finishes in the World Cup are just
have been amazing. Milan Badel of Croatia with a beautiful goal against Iceland. Croatia won 2-1 with a goal in the 90th minute, Nick.
So a lot of people probably didn't see this goal live because if you only watched on one screen, you were probably watching the Argentina match, which I know we're going to show you in a moment. Croatia has been outstanding in this tournament.
You surprised a lot of people. Even though people in the international community, over the last several years, this young group of players they have are amazing.
Including the Croatians.
Dude,
surprised.
oh my goodness.
14th minute, Lionel Messi scoring the 100th goal of the 2018 World Cup finally.
See, how does he settle this with his thigh?
Don't miss that part. A little thigh, a little hip, and then puts the boot on it.
I mean, how do you settle it?
Watch how hard he kicks it, though. Typically, you won't see a guy finish. He knew, and he needed all that velocity to be able to get past the keeper on that one.
I just can't get over the left thigh settled to the foot, 2 steps, right foot. That's his first goal of the World Cup and a critical one.
All right, sticking with Argentina, this is Marcos Rojo with a goal in the 86th minute. This one was epic, puts Argentina into the quarters.
I mean, what you said is absolutely right. Without this goal, Argentina's tournament's over. They got fortunate with a review where there wasn't a handball called, where it looked like a handball, where Nigeria could have taken the lead. At this moment, it looked like Nigeria was going to go on. This was a critical goal that could change the entire World Cup.
And this is why people like group play, because you can play poorly, maybe in 2 games, and get away with it. Them getting the win compared to the tie was critical as far as them advancing.
Absolutely.
That was a great game.
It was a great soccer game.
All right, new topic now. Let's talk football. If the average NFL career lasts 3.5 years, then Broncos linebacker Von Miller says what my kids always say. I poo-poo that. Miller, coming off his 4th straight year with 10 or more sacks, says he's got at least 10 good years of football left in him. It's a lot. Cece, why is it so hard for NFL players to play as long as Von Miller seems to want to play?
It's because the NFL is different than the other sports, that it requires more practice at a higher level that's more taxing on your body and the competition that you're put in. And it's hard for guys to be role players. Von Miller probably could play if we had like the NBA, where you could be a Cal Korver type.
A specialist.
You could be a specialist. You can come in and be able to spot up and be able to hit threes, be a limited player defensively. Yeah, you could. Von Miller could come in
19 seasons.
He could come in on 3rd down and get double digits in sacks. He'd be very, very fresh, but when you don't play special teams, when you have a limited number of roster spots, and also the way the game day where you can only dress a certain number of players compared to the whole 53-man roster, those things lead to coaches and general managers not holding on to guys when they are older. But the practice is the biggest part. Yeah, you could probably play 10 more years if he only played in the games. But the taxing part about practice is totally different than NBA, which they don't hardly practice, or baseball, which they only practice a limited amount.
Well, in baseball, you really can't during you have spring training, and then you're just playing. So why is the practice so taxing? Explain for people that haven't been there, because a lot of people watch on TV, they go to the games. Most people have never been to an NFL practice. Maybe a few have been to a couple training camps, and that's it. Why is it so taxing?
Because the intensity. Because the coaches are trying to simulate almost game speed. And the only way you can get better at practicing your technique is going against guys bigger, stronger, and faster, so that you have to keep trying to work at that craft. In the NBA, once you get a skill, people take it as if, man, he has this skill, it won't depreciate that much even as he gets older. But the practicing part, you're playing one game a week, you're practicing 4 days a week compared to the flip-flop for the other sports.
What you've seen from Von Miller, can you see him playing 10 more seasons? We discussed Tom Brady ad nauseum at the beginning of the year, but the quarterback position is very different than that linebacker position. It takes far more of a toll on your body. Can you see 10 more years out of Von Miller?
What we've seen is the greatest players that have played this position, they've been able to play a long, long time, especially if they're able to avoid, in the second half of that part of their career, a significant injury. If you look at Reggie White, played a long, long time. Look at Bruce Smith, played a long, long time. Now, you might not be able to do it, say, in Denver, but if someone wants someone to come off the edge, you have to realize Von Miller, he's a freakish athlete. Now, how aggressive is he going to be, Jenna, as far as the nutrition, the hydration, the overall sleep? Those are the things. You can be a freak athlete, but those are the things that start to set you apart when you get around 28 to age 30.
You mentioned specialists. This is the one position, right, where there are, to a degree, sometimes guys later in their career where they create a roster spot for you to be a specialist.
Yes.
I feel like Dwight Freeney, late in his career,
yes. Charles Haley.
So this is the one spot. At wide receiver, there's no, specialist. Hey, we're only going to have you run 9 routes. We're going to keep you on the roster for that. But for pass rusher, we see that occasionally. And for Von, listen, Von's played 7 years in this league. He's missed 2 games due to injury. One, he blew his ACL at the very end of his 4th season, missed that playoff, and plus the playoff run that year, but then came back healthy at the beginning of next year. Since then, 64 regular season games available, started and played all 64. So he has been healthy the second half of his career thus far.
And one thing, Jenna, you'll appreciate about this, you can't do something as strenuous as this unless you really, really love it. So when you talk about a guy who's got a chance, this is why I love guys who talk this way compared to Ben Roethlisberger last offseason, or other players saying, you know something, it's hard to play a long, long time when you really don't love it, because you're not going to make those type of sacrifices that you need to make.
All right, let me ask you a question. I know you don't always like if the story's not about you and I bring you into it, but I'm going to do that anyway. You played 16 years.
Yes.
What allowed you, because he's played 7, so 10 would put him right around that same time. What allowed you, do you think, to play years 13, 14, 15?
There were a number of things. Number one is I didn't reach my prime. I was a later developer, so I didn't really get great at football until about 1994, around my 5th or 7th year in the league. So that's when I broke the NFL record. Then I had Dennis Green, who came up with the 3-receiver offense, put me in the slot. And then after that, then I had Randy Moss. So I had a couple things that were propel me. Dennis Green moving me to the slot, me being in my prime. Then we drafted Randy Moss, gave me another 4 years that kept the game very, very exciting. And having him on the team, it was challenging every day to be the best on the field. So those things help as you advance in age.
I thought you might say something like that, because that's what I find interesting about any guy that wants to play really long. Is when you've talked about this, yes, of course, you have to avoid injury and you have to stay in shape. But what helped you play so long is there were new things that helped your brain stay interested in it.
Yes.
Moving to the slot, you had to learn something new. Competing with Randy, you all of a sudden had to take your game to as high of a level as you ever had. So it's not just about Von Miller or anybody that wants to play really long staying healthy. It's about also the game not getting boring or rote or monotonous for them, right?
Yeah, but it all starts with their desire to play for a long, long time. When guys talk about playing a long time, typically they're going to be able to fulfill that. And you can't leave out, he is a freakish athlete. Now, Tom Brady's not a freakish athlete, but he's playing the type of position that you can play and get old at if you get consumed with taking care of your body, getting enough rest, and making all those sacrifices that people like Jenna make.
I make them every single day. It's hard. Just being on the show is a sacrifice. Plus, we get 10 years of more Old Spice commercials if Von Miller stays in the league. So
That's a good line. I don't know who fed that to you. But
literally nobody. Literally, I didn't even have this in my ear. It was just me. You guys like my line?
Thank you.
That was great.
Good job.
Hey,
Thanks,
coming
guys.
up, why are the Rockets still in the hunt for LeBron James?
Hey,
you'll
put
see.
that on. They're
I'm going to
talking
put
to
that
you.
back in. They're talking to me. They're like, hurry up. Also, less than an hour, Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles stops by. All that and more. First things first.
Hi, I'm Alexi Lawless. I used to play soccer back in the 1900s for the U.S. Now you can find me talking about soccer this summer during the World Cup on Fox. Now through July 15th, you can get daily FIFA World Cup updates from me through your Alexa-enabled device. Just say, Alexa, play the Fox Sports Flash Briefing, and you'll get the latest tournament news straight from Russia. Alexa and Alexi. Now that's a winning team. Don't forget to watch the 2018 FIFA World Cup all tournament long live on Fox and FS1.
Time for some stories to start your morning. Argentina beat Nigeria 2-1 in the soccer game to advance to the round of 16. Lionel Messi scored in the 14th minute, and Marcus Rojo scored the game winner in the 86th minute. This was a phenomenal game. Nick, how important was this game, not just for Argentina, but for Messi?
Well, listen, obviously for Argentina, if they don't win, they don't advance. So wildly important for them. For Messi, because everyone in sports media, it would appear, has turned into just a what have you done for me lately? And by lately, I mean in the last 72 hours.
Yes.
It was very important.
Everyone's jumped on the bandwagon criticizing Messi.
Messi leads all of Europe in goals. Goals created, assists, doesn't matter. He had a bad 2 games. So this was critical. He almost scored another goal off a set piece. Now it's a whole new tournament. Single elimination. They're one of the 16 teams that's going to be left.
And that's one of the things about group stage that people love. You don't have to dominate in games 1 or 2. If you're able to get a tie in one of those games, you can salvage your tournament, and that's what they've been able to do. So Ronaldo, Messi, and the other greats, we see them all moving on.
Absolutely.
All right, to the NBA now. The Clippers traded Austin Rivers to the Wizards for Marcin Gortat. Remember, Austin's dad, Doc, still the coach of the Clippers, no longer the general manager of the Clippers. Chris, you surprised Austin Rivers got traded?
No, you knew eventually, especially when they kind of remove some of those titles from daddy's name. This is probably the son. Typically, he's going to get a demotion or something. It's typically going to happen to him. I believe Austin Rivers is more than a competent NBA player, but it's hard playing for your dad. When they traded for him, eventually we were going to get to this day, and when the team started to slip, Austin, the criticism he gets, I think it's better for Austin's career to be able to go to Washington.
Well, and everyone is focused, understandably, on the kid got traded from the team, his dad coach. But I want to talk about the other side of this. The Clippers trading for Marcin Gortat, to me, says DeAndre Jordan is available. Now, he has an option that he can opt into, but even if he opts in, I think they're going to move him. So if he opts out, obviously he's a free agent, but DeAndre Jordan is available if the team wants him.
All right, to the NFL now. Odell Beckham is still hoping the Giants give him a contract extension. One Giants legend agrees with that. Phil Simms
Your guy.
said the Giants need to, quote, pay that man his money in regards to Odell. Chris Carr, do you think the Giants give Odell a contract extension before the season starts?
I believe it's not that easy, and especially when you talk about wide receivers. If you talk about $20 million, like paying a wide receiver $20 million, what does that do for the rest of your team? I don't believe it's easy. I believe Odell is one of the best in the league. Does he deserve money? Yes. But the way the collective bargaining agreement, if I'm the Giants, I wouldn't be in a rush. The collective bargaining agreement states if I draft you in the first round, I get a 4-year deal and an option year. Exercise that option, I have the right to be able to franchise you for 2 more seasons. Why wouldn't they do that compared to giving him all the guaranteed money? So I don't necessarily agree with Phil Simms, but I didn't play for the Giants like Phil Simms, so I don't have to say something that would be to the advantage of the Giants players.
Listen, If Odell doesn't deserve a contract extension, then who other than quarterbacks in this league do? And I think if the Giants had drafted a quarterback at number 2, if they were going with some type of rebuild, then maybe you make the argument we don't want to pay $20 million for a wide receiver. But when you go sign Nate Solder, when you draft Saquon Barkley, when you're trying to compete again with Eli Manning, you need the best player on your team there for training camp, there for week 1, and happy for all those reasons, and because he's earned it. I make Odell the highest paid receiver.
Are you sure if you give him the money that he's going to be happy?
Happier. He'll be happier. Everyone's happier with more money, sure. I mean, Odell's maybe won't
Big difference
ever be
between
totally
happy and happier.
Sure.
All right, finally, is it me or is Le'Veon Bell always in contract talks with the Steelers? Last season, Pittsburgh gave him the franchise tag, so he skipped all of training camp. This year, Pittsburgh gave him the franchise tag, so he's skipping all of OTAs. But big news from the Bell camp, the running back is confident they can get a long-term deal done. He says they're, quote, a lot closer than last year. CC, you buying this?
Well, Jenna, they have real pressure now because they've gone through the first episode of we'll franchise him. Nothing he can do. He was like, oh, no problem. I'm out of here after this year. Well, we can franchise you again. So now we're at our second but last dance. The Pittsburgh Steelers, really, they have no other option after this, right? They've exhausted all their options. So I believe it's easier to put them in a predicament to make them pay him at a more reasonable number. Then there wasn't any pressure the last 2 years. Pittsburgh knew. They had the franchise tag in their back pocket. They already had Ben signed to a long-term contract. They signed Antonio to a long-term contract. So they knew they could franchise him. And doing that for a running back has been a very good strategy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's made good money, but they didn't have to shell out the guarantees as far as from a contract standpoint and or the signing bonus. So, yes, I believe Pittsburgh, because they've been pressed to the wall and realized that Le'Veon Bell, he could play another 3 or 4 years at a higher level. So I do believe they get it worked out.
They're another year removed also from his suspension issue. So, like, another year of an example of that he's kept his nose clean to a degree. And CeCe's point's the most important one. If they do not get a contract extension done with him this year, this is the last year he'll be a Steeler. Because they will lose. Technically, you can franchise a guy 3 times, but you never do it because the salary becomes exorbitant in the 3rd year of that franchise. So they wouldn't franchise him 3 times. And he also, he's not going to give Pittsburgh a hometown discount, not if they franchise him twice when he wants a long-term deal. And the one thing you didn't mention as far as pressure is the Steelers know they wasted an opportunity last year. That was the most talented team in football in my eyes, at least in the AFC. And they got bounced before the Super Bowl again. They lost their biggest regular season game again, the one to New England. Like, the idea that you want to have the added pressure of this is our last year with our big 3 because L. Bell's out of here after this season, I don't think that's good for them. So if he doesn't want $18 million a year, if it's closer to $14 million a year, I think he's earned it. Like, he is one of the 3 best running backs, just like Odell's one of the 3 best wide receivers.
Right.
This is one of the 3 best running backs in football.
So you guys are both pretty confident there's another team out there after this that'll pay him the $18 million he's looking for?
I don't know about $18 million. No running back. That's a huge number for a running back. But there would be a market out there for him, especially on teams that have the cap space, but teams that aren't winning. You know, like last year, people talked about, well, will he go to the Browns and everything? Well, yeah, he could have gone to the Browns, but no running back's going to get $18 million.
But they could reset the market. That's the thing. That's why Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, Todd Gurley are all watching this closely. Because right now, the first franchise tag for a running back pays you like $8 to $9 million, the first one. Because the running back market is so depressed. They need one guy to go out there and get, forget the 18. That was always a bit of a pipe dream. But $13 million a year, $14 million a year.
My question was whether the Steelers would end up paying him more than he could get on the open market, whether that would be incentive enough to stay in Pittsburgh.
I think that we're not there yet. I think that both parties know. L. Bell knows because of a long-term health standpoint, and the Steelers know because they are a championship contender. The best situation for all parties is to get a deal done this offseason. They weren't able to last year.
I can't make any more Le'Veon Bell jokes if he signs a contract, so I don't know what's best for me. It's actually about. All right, moving on to LeBron watch. According to reports, the Kang will most likely make his destination decision by July 4th, an independent decision. Get it? Mm-hmm. Cool. The favorite destinations for LeBron, the Lakers and his current team, the Cavs. But according to reports, the Rockets are still all in on LeBron James. Nick, still a chance LeBron joins James Harden and CP3 out in Houston?
Is there a chance? Sure. Will the Rockets move mountains for it? Absolutely. Is it the best place for LeBron to win a championship next year? I believe so. Next year, not necessarily long term. Man, I don't think LeBron wants to live in Texas. I don't think LeBron wants to send his kids to school in Houston. And I don't think LeBron wants to potentially be in a position where he is moving teams again after after this decision, unless this decision is to stay in Cleveland and he basically punts it a year. And I don't know if I think LeBron believes he's going to play another 5 to 7 years. There's no way Chris Paul's playing another 5 to 7 years. So for all those reasons, even though if he signs with Houston, that's his best chance to win a title immediately, and Houston will move mountains for him, they would have any time in the last 3 years, I don't think they're high on LeBron's wish list.
Yeah, well, one thing that I'll try to point out, and especially when you're as wealthy as LeBron, if you can live in Akron, if you can live in Cleveland, you can live in Philadelphia, Texas, Boston, or Los Angeles. So people say, the Los Angeles thing's a foregone conclusion. But I don't believe that LeBron nor his team or family have a problem with them living in Houston. I believe that the team, they have no problem with his kids going to school in Houston because there's good schools everywhere. I just believe it's still about the totality of LeBron James and his business. It's just not about championships. We like to say it's about championships, but it's what will this move lead to? Now, I do know personally from the ownership of the Houston Rockets and the people making all the decisions, LeBron James will always be a priority as long as he's playing in the NBA. Now, they talk about they were consumed with Golden State. They're consumed with LeBron. They say, man, if the analytics don't have a LeBron equation in there, your analytics are wrong.
Right.
So I believe when you have that type of intensity from the ownership and the people and the management, there will always be a pull for LeBron. And I believe that the schools and where they're living, the guys can get around that.
Well, 2 questions. One, what would have to happen for that to work, for LeBron to be able to go there, for people that don't fully understand?
He's got to opt in by Friday. Listen, theoretically, they could sign him, but if LeBron does not opt in by Friday,
yes,
you can cross the Rockets off the list.
And 2, would that automatically make the Rockets the best team in the NBA?
I think it would. I think the Rockets were very close.
I mean, we could argue that they were better than Golden State
this
already
year, yeah,
with Chris Paul. So now with LeBron, I mean, like, let's not forget how good they were. You add LeBron to that, there's no way they get worse. All right? And now they have the one person in the building got championship pedigree. We took that for granted last year. I knew it would be important. And LeBron could bring that. They didn't get that with Chris Paul, but they get that with LeBron.
Right, they get the one person in the league that has beaten Steph Curry and beaten Kevin Durant in the NBA Finals. Now, granted, they weren't on the same team, but he's beaten both those guys on the biggest stage. And C's point about the people in power in Houston being obsessed with LeBron, he is 100% correct. Listen, I don't want to reveal confidences here, but I don't think he'd be mad at me. Daryl, whatever I think about LeBron's all-time ranking, you know who agrees with me? The general manager of the Houston Rockets, and has thought that for years. That this guy is the story Cece was alluding to is Daryl tells a story from a long time ago that when they were creating algorithms or models to evaluate players, that one of the rules was, all right, that's great, we'll have our analytics department build it. Once you put in the info, if it doesn't spit out the best players, LeBron, there's something wrong with your algorithm. Right. And so we know how much that team would like to get him, how they would. That's why I said move mountains. When I brought up Texas, yes, there's great schools everywhere, and I lived in Houston for 5 years. I'm not disparaging the city. It just, from what I've heard and from what I understand, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because of his wife, I don't know if it's because he's never lived in Texas, that the idea of moving there as opposed to Philly, which isn't that far from Cleveland, Los Angeles, where he has a home, Cleveland, where he is already, is location-wise the least attractive of the options. It is the most attractive from a ability to win a championship standpoint, but then you have to ask this question, and this is the one thing that we have to do when we do the math on this. Does LeBron feel, guess where you can win a championship? Everywhere I'm at. Nowhere I'm at's going to be in a worse position than Cleveland was this past year.
There's no doubt.
And we got there and should have won game 1, and then who knows if I don't break my hand. So is LeBron's championship equation simply where I go? We become a contender. Like, yes, having good players is nice, but I'm the championship equation.
I believe that's why the Lakers are the favorite, because he knows that. And he knows what he did with the roster that they had in Cleveland.
All right, we got to take a break. Nick Foles is going to stop by in a little bit, but coming up next, can Aaron Rodgers lead the Packers back to the Super Bowl? Former head coach Eric Mangini is in-house to talk about that and more next on First Things First. Former head coach Eric Mangini joins the show.
What up, Coach? Good to see you.
This right here is a prime example why people are trying to hire our wardrobe people away from us. This is how we do it at Fox. This is called the Fox Blue.
You touching him.
Yeah, man, Coach Mangini
I'll be
looks
posing later. Fashion Week has called me.
Full spread, full.
It brings out your
full
eyes.
magazine
It does. It pops.
I thought this was my lane, but it's not my lane.
Gaze into the camera now.
Good job, Christine.
You know exactly
Victoria.
what you'll be
Drink
doing
it in.
later.
Drink it in.
Drink it.
Take me in.
Drink it.
It'll be 78 degrees in Green Bay today, and that is far from the hottest it'll get out there. The hottest it'll get will be when Aaron Rodgers takes the field for the first game in front of his home crowd this season. Rodgers missed all but 7 games last year, and the Packers missed the playoffs for the first time since 2008 as a result. But one former quarterback thinks the Packers are primed for a bounce-back year.
I think the Packers probably got better maybe more than any team I saw this offseason. The Jimmy Graham thing is a big deal. People don't understand. You're going to see old school Jimmy Graham. When you pair him with Aaron Rodgers, you're going to see a little bit of a different animal. And in the red zone, that'll be almost unstoppable. If their secondary is a little bit better, I think that they're the team to beat this year.
All right, Coach, what do you think about what Tony Romo said? Are they the team to beat this year? What do they need to become that team?
Well, this is a little bit like Dallas. So what we talked about with Dallas. Here's another place where they had a massive overhaul in staff. So they changed the offensive coordinator, they changed the defensive coordinator, they changed the structure of the way they're doing things with a passing game coordinator and a running game coordinator. So how that all meshes together, how well those guys, especially on defense, adapt to the new scheme, that to me is a big question mark. The fact that they addressed the secondary with taking 2 corners, I agree with Tony. That was a good decision. You know, they didn't really address the wide receiver situation. Yes, on the second day they drafted 3 guys, but we're going to have to see where those 3 guys go. I do like the Mercedes Lewis and Jimmy Graham pickups at tight end because now you've got a run-blocking tight end, you've got a passing threat. That can create real problems in the center of the defense. So that's positive. There are a lot of question marks. They did try to address some needs. How well the coaching staff comes together, to me, is going to be a big part of this equation.
Yeah, Jenna, you mentioned the weather. It's 77, cloudy, 78, I think you said 77 and cloudy. And it's smoking hot around the rest of the United States. And that's the same way it is in the NFC. So the only way I believe that Aaron Rodgers gets them to the Super Bowl, if you got to go through Green Bay, where it is frigid weather, and you have a tremendous home field advantage. I love the fact that you bring up, people talk about Jimmy Graham, they don't bring up Mercedes Lewis. Jimmy Graham in the running game is a liability. But because they don't have the tremendous number of wideouts that they used to have, now they can go 2 tight ends, coach, 1 back, and 2 receivers on the field with Adams and Cobb and be very, very solid. Not try to play the system they played before with 3 wide receivers and an offensive line that has tremendous question marks. And that's why Aaron Rodgers and keeping him healthy, I believe, is very important with having both of those tight ends compared to the way they've played an open set in the previous several years now.
I want to talk about the running back situation just for a moment, because since Aaron Rodgers has been there, they have as many seasons where their leading rusher had over 1,000 yards as they have seasons where their leading rusher had fewer than 600 yards. So, like, I understand that right when he got there, Ryan Grant was good, and Eddie Lacy, before he got a disparaging nickname of Fat Eddie Lacy, had a couple good seasons, but they haven't had a great running game his whole time there. What does Aaron Rodgers look like in your eyes if Aaron Jones, who we saw flashes of last year, or Jamal Williams, because I think Ty Montgomery we know about what he is. If one of those guys is a legitimate feature back, what does that do for Aaron Rodgers? Because I haven't seen that version of Aaron Rodgers because the Packers haven't allowed us to see that version of Aaron Rodgers.
Well, just like Ezekiel Elliott creates opportunities for Dak Prescott in Dallas, Aaron Rodgers creates opportunities for any running back in Green Bay because everybody has to play a 7-man box. And what I mean by that is you've got to stop the passing game in Green Bay. That's what you have to focus on, which creates these tremendous opportunities for backs and even backs that aren't necessarily frontline guys. And there has been a commitment to Green Bay to run the ball more than you think when you go into it. So I think Aaron Rodgers makes the backs better.
CC, Coach touched upon the wide receiving situation. It was no secret that obviously Aaron Rodgers was upset that Jordy Nelson left. Tell me where they are with their receivers right now, and are you concerned at all? That's where he felt more comfortable.
This is the thing, because they run so many plays at the line of scrimmage, the overall timing and communication with Aaron Rodgers becomes very important. And is there someone out there who can enhance what they're doing from a playmaking standpoint? They believe from a front office standpoint, we're going to develop wide receivers in-house. So with their draft picks, and they have done a good job of drafting guys and making them either number 2 or number 3 guys. I believe with the emphasis on some of the running game, having 2 tight ends, you don't have to be as spread offense as they have been. So I believe they can be more conventional, pro style, 2 tight ends, 1 back, 2 wide receivers, because they do have 2 good wide receivers in Adams and Cobb. So I believe the system, but they have to be committed to the running game because it takes pressure off that offensive line.
And when you look at New England, Tom Brady consistently turns good wide receivers into great wide receivers, and that's the responsibility that Aaron Rodgers has. When you want to be paid what Aaron is hoping to be paid, and then look, he should be paid, then you have a responsibility to develop those guys, to make those guys better players, and you're not necessarily going to get the stars in Green Bay. You've got to turn those guys into stars with things you do.
Can I circle back something you mentioned? They drafted a corner in the first round and second round, Jair Alexander and Josh Jackson. Most rookie corners are not Marshawn Lattimore. Even first-round corners. Like, you tell me your experience with this. I feel like you can draft a really good player who maybe is eventually going to be a Pro Bowler, and his rookie year is below league average at that position. Like, I understand why they emphasize that, but how much does that help them this year if he's a typical first-round corner, not necessarily defensive rookie of the year Marshawn Lattimore?
I mean, that's tough. I mean, I drafted Darrell Reeves and Joe Hayden and Asante Samuel, so I was part of those drafts.
Sure.
I hate to pat myself. Let me just reach around with this new suit that I'm wearing. With your eyes, just drink me in while you take the...
Revis is... You understand my point. They're not going to be Revis. Go ahead.
I think that with any young quarterback, just like we talked about young quarterbacks, if he has some good mentors, if he has some people around him that can help him develop, he's going to get tested, and he's going to get tested on a consistent basis. So you may have to help him early in the season with the type of coverages you play. You may have to give him a little bit more protection than you want to early on as he's establishing himself and as he's learning. But at some point when you play cornerback, you sign up to be on an island, and they have to grow up pretty quickly.
Right, and it gives someone like Eric a defensive mind. It gives him more options of what he wants to do. Do I want to put them in press? Do I want to blitz? Do I want to play to my offense? Slow bleed them, play a lot of zone, see if they can get enough first downs. But the number of things the Packers can do with those young players, it increased on draft day, and that is a good thing for them.
Coach, thanks so much for hanging out. I say stay in the suit all day. I don't know if you can go to the gym or what you're going to do, but stay in it. You're going to turn a lot of heads.
I typically work out with a suit.
As do I. That's so funny.
It helps me.
Same, me and you, like this. I'm over here, though. Hey, coming up, you know who did that? I think Oprah did that once.
You ain't Oprah. Jerry Rice still playing the NFL, and Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles joins us next. That's right here on First Things First.
Magic Johnson put himself on the hot seat, saying he would step down if the Lakers don't land big-name targets. 2 of the biggest targets, LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard. So who is more likely to be a Laker next season, LeBron or Kawhi? Nick, we'll start with you. Take your pick.
The one who can decide to be a Laker this offseason.
Nope.
LeBron James. I think Kawhi Leonard eventually is going to be a Los Angeles Laker. But if you listen to the Spurs, they're not trading him to the Lakers this offseason. Now, maybe they'll change their opinion on that, but the Lakers are the leading candidates for LeBron, and he controls this. Kawhi doesn't control it. So, to me, this one's easy, LeBron.
Yes, and the one person that has 2 homes in Los Angeles. Now, I know Kawhi is from California, yes, and he's trying to get back there, but LeBron controls what he wants to do. I believe LeBron, there might be a part of him that's a little consumed with eventually playing for the Lakers. I believe it's been with him for a couple years. So, LBJ.
All right, let's move on to Philly. Joel Embiid said his goal for next season is to win MVP, but he could have some competition from his own teammate and Rookie of the Year Ben Simmons. Which Sixer is more likely to win MVP next season, Embiid or Simmons? CC, take your pick.
Well, I would say there's 0 chance Ben Simmons would be the MVP next year.
Ooh.
If he did, it would be the most drastic turnaround from someone averaging 15 points and can't shoot outside of 5 feet to being the best player in the NBA. Oh, no, absolutely. I don't even really like the question because the goal should be trying to win a championship. That should be their goal. It shouldn't be MVP.
Yeah.
If both of them play well, they should be vying for a championship. But Joel Embiid, I'm starting with the best player. The guy's he's more special than Ben Simmons. There's players closer to Ben Simmons than Joel Embiid as far as a center in his overall arc as a basketball player.
In defense of Embiid, he's talked about winning championships day before yesterday regarding LeBron. Now he talked about winning MVP. So he's talked about both. I'm going to say Joel Embiid as well for next season. I disagree with you on one point, though. I think the player of these two with the highest upside is Simmons. I think Simmons has a better chance of eventually one day being the best player in the league.
What does Joel Embiid have to get better at?
What? Playing. Show me that he can consistently play more than 30 minutes a night.
Okay, so what's the chance of that compared to where he is now compared to the other guy who's have to get a jump shot?
I understand that Ben Simmons shooting is a big problem, and you consider it a bigger problem than I do.
Anybody in basketball would consider it a problem.
If it lingers into next season, I might join you. I think it is something he will get fixed, and the other things that he can do are already A+ level in this league. But for next year, my answer is Joel Embiid.
All right, let's move on to football. Le'Veon Bell said he is confident he'll sign a long-term deal with the Steelers, while Giants great Phil Simms said New York needs to go all in and pay Odell Beckham his money. Which player is more likely to get paid before the season starts, Le'Veon Bell or Odell Beckham? Nick, take your pick.
I'm going to say Odell. Odell's the player who's had the owner of the team say we're going to pay him. Odell's the player who has never been franchise tagged before, and that Odell's the player also, I think, that they know because they've dealt without him how critical he is to their success, and they've got a quarterback that is on his, in my eyes, last few seasons as opposed to Ben, who's probably got a few more seasons than Eli. For all those reasons, I say Odell Beckham.
You got to read the question. I know you're smart and everything, but sometimes you don't read it. It says before the season. The Giants, they don't have to pay Odell. They have a contract for the season. New contract, L. Bell, because they have the pressure. They have more pressure in Pittsburgh to sign him than Odell. Odell, man, they got 2 franchise tags. This year, next year, he could be stuck with the franchise tag. I believe L. Bell in Pittsburgh. More pressure.
Way to not read, Nick.
I read the question.
The early
I stand
NFL
by my
MVP
answer.
odds. I can't believe you can't read. The MVP odds.
Oh, speaking of can't read.
Quarterbacks at the top. Why do I do that? It's so annoying to myself. But dark horse. Stop talking, Nick. Dark horses like Kirk Cousins at 22-1 and Deshaun Watson at 20-1 should not be slept on. And Dusty, stop laughing over there. I can still hear you. So which dark horse is more likely to win MVP, Cousins or Watson? CC, take your pick.
I believe there's a lot of quarterbacks in this category, either guys that have gone to new teams. Jimmy Garoppolo, people are excited about his 5-0 start in San Francisco. We had potentially him on the question. Deshaun coming off a tremendous rookie year in Houston. Will he be able to maintain that for a whole season? Or someone like Kirk Cousins, who you like to got all that money guaranteed in Minnesota. I believe it's Kirk Cousins because he's got the best supporting cast. I believe his wide receivers and their ability not only to get open, but to be able to make contested catches is the difference. Deshaun Watson and Jimmy Garoppolo, buyer beware. Fantasy football, watch out. I believe a correction will come to them, a lot like Dak Prescott last year, and watch them come back to the pack compared to building on what they did in 17.
I think the correction's coming to Jimmy Garoppolo, but I am all in on Deshaun Watson. I watched him be the best player in college football for 2 consecutive years. I watched him for a month and a half in Houston light the world on fire. And while Thielen and Diggs are really good wide receivers, man, Nuke Hopkins and Will Fuller as a deep threat, I think are a better pair of wide receivers. I think Deshaun Watson could have an enormous year, and they don't have the running game that they have in Minnesota, so he's going to be asked to do more. What's up?
Before we start the season, I'm going to show you some numbers and everything that are going to be shocking to your system. As far as Deshaun Watson, when you take away his first option, man, he goes from like a great quarterback to a very, very poor. I'm going to give you the numbers.
Sounds like that first option better get open, boys. Deshaun Watson, 20-1 MVP.
Maybe they can run your zigzag route.
Finally.
You need to stop misrepresenting that. That's in certain situations. 3rd and 20+. Draw an illegal contact penalty.
Jerry Rice says he could still play in the NFL at the age of 55. Luckily for us, we have our own Hall of Fame receiver on staff. Which wide receiver would you rather have on your team next season, Jerry Rice or Cris Carter? Nick, take your pick.
Man, next season, any season, I'm taking Cris Carter. Now, why are you shaking your head? What? Why are you shaking your head? Go ahead.
No, you're better off drafting yourself.
Why?
Man, we are not. The NFL is a young man's game. I just think it's just awful disrespectful at an advanced age, beyond midlife.
Thank
all right?
you. I got
you
it.
talk about going back to the NFL, I mean, I know Jerry, he's the GOAT. He was the GOAT. You don't take that GOAT status into time. I mean, didn't he get cut?
He did.
A number of years ago?
Right, that's my point. And so you said it's a young man's game. You know who's younger than Jerry Rice? Cris Carter.
No,
and
I can't practice. A young man's game. It's a young, good-looking man's game. I'm well-dressed for my current job.
I'm going to give my hottest take of all time. You give Cris Carter Jerry Rice's quarterbacks, and let's see how those numbers go. Let Cris Carter play with Joe Montana, Steve Young. Let him go be paired with Tim Brown at one point. Jerry Rice, man. Come on. You know what?
Let me tell you what happens, Nick.
Rice.
Let me tell you what happens. We both still end up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Nothing changes.
Oh, look,
okay.
You know the way I like to do the rankings. Maybe a few things change.
Yeah, I'm cool. Jerry's going to play football next year. You know what I'm doing next year, Nick?
What?
TV. I'm going to talk about football.
Okay, that's fine. Listen, hey, I would like to see Jerry Rice catch passes from Spurgeon win. See how that works out for him. My man got a lacerated kidney at one point.
I'm coming back now. If God touched me like Nick Foles, I can come back and play for it. I can do that. If I can come back like Nick Foles,